Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar on Human-centric security, revolutionizing cybersecurity with Dr. Marthie Grobler. Dr. Grobler is the Principal Research Scientist at Data61 at CSIRO. Before I give her a bit more of an introduction, I wanted to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land which I meet, which is the Gadigal people, and I extend that respect to all traditional owners and to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to extend that respect and acknowledgement to any First Nations people on the call today. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Alana Huffnance and I'm the New South Wales State Manager. I have just a little bit of housekeeping. This session's going to go for about 45 minutes and then we'll have some Q&A at the end. However, you can put your questions in the Q&A functionality at any time and we'll get to them at the end of Marthie's presentation. We try to get through as many questions as we can, but we will be finishing on time. So if we can't get to your particular question, feel free to reach out to Dr. Grobler. She'll have some contact details and way to get in contact with her at the end. Lastly, if you're on the call for CPD points, you will need to stay on for the entirety of the webinar to be eligible for those points. So now, without any further delay, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Marthie Grobler, who is the Principal Research Scientist in Human-centered Cybersecurity at CSIRO's Data61. She's and is the leading CSIRO portfolio of work on clinical infrastructure protection and resilience. Marthie's research focus is on enhancing the usability of security solutions by considering human factors with a strong interest in executive education, cybersecurity governance, and critical infrastructure resilience and protection. Marthie spearheaded the establishment of the original human-centric security research team at CSIRO, which focused on addressing the alignment and integration of human factors in the cyber domain to enhance adoption and efficiency. So I'll hand over to Marthie. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just sharing my screen. Okay. Joyce, can I just confirm that you can see my screen, please?
Yes, indeed. We can see your
Wonderful.
screen.
Thank you. Now, in today's rapidly evolving digital landscape, cybersecurity is no longer just a technical problem. It's definitely a human challenge. So good afternoon, everybody. I am Dr. Marthie Grobler from CSIRO. I'm leading our portfolio of work on critical infrastructure protection and resilience with a background in human-centric cybersecurity. Today, I'm going to tell you a bit about the human aspects of cyber. We are going to look at three aspects. So first, why is human-centric security crucial for modern cybersecurity? What is the role of humans in cybersecurity, and how can we collectively prepare for a cyber attack? Now, cybersecurity is ever evolving, and there is really no foolproof way to protect ourselves because the landscape, the threats, and the tools that we use to protect ourselves are evolving. So today is not about giving you a strict list of do's and don'ts, but rather today is about sharing some information on how humans fit within the bigger scheme of cybersecurity, and perhaps leaving you with a couple of thoughts on how you could do things differently or think about cybersecurity differently. So what is human-centric security? It is the area where the human is the creator, the user, the point of success, and the point of failure. For the purpose of this research, we consider human-centric cybersecurity as involving all aspects of cybersecurity, but with a particular focus on the human involvement in the systems and the processes. That is understanding how humans interact with systems and what risks are introduced as a result of these interactions. More importantly, understanding that a specific trust relationship needs to be developed between the human and the system to ensure the correct balance. The domain is established as an amalgamation of traditional cybersecurity principles and the integration of human-computer interaction, with an increased focus on collaborative intelligence, with humans and technology now working alongside each other. The domain shows promise as a socio-cognitive technical approach to cybersecurity, focusing on the role that humans play in cybersecurity and developing varied approaches that could ultimately lead to a balanced cybersecurity perspective with not just a single point of failure. Now, here at CSIRO, we have developed what we refer to as the 3U model of human-centric cybersecurity. This is in contrast with the belief that humans as the user are the weakest link in the technical system. In establishing a foundation for the concept of human-centric cybersecurity, we have selected 3 components for consideration. We've got the user, usage, and usability. You can have a look at the article referred to at the bottom for a bit more detail on this. But in essence, we see that technology needs to be usable by all users, and we need to adjust the frame of reference as the advances of technology have extended the scope of the original role that users can play within the space. So the work that we do look at behavior, perceptions, and human thinking, at cybersecurity governance and management, at decision-making and support, and at cyber gamification, amongst other things. Our motto for leveraging the human element is to keep the human in the loop. So designed for humans, by humans, and secured by humans too. Now let's dive into the first aspect of human-centric security. So cybersecurity has never been more important, both as an enabler for Australian industry and as a source of economic growth itself. As an enabler, cybersecurity's importance is being driven by the global business environment becoming increasingly interconnected and reliant on data and digital technologies. As a result, organizations need to think about cybersecurity not just in terms of compliance and risk mitigation, but as an essential business function that is fully embedded in processes and systems. So, human-centric security, why is it crucial for modern cybersecurity? 3 reasons. Firstly, there are multiple hazard types, of which cyber is just one. However, gone are the days when a cyber incident impacts just a computer system. Cyber systems are now so well integrated into everything else that a problem in cyberspace could quickly escalate into other things. So, for example, cyber incidents can have significant and often personal impacts on normal citizens. Think about a data breach at a company that can expose personal information that can lead to identity theft, where criminals use stolen data to open credit accounts or commit fraud in the victim's name. Or cyber criminals may gain access to bank accounts or credit card details, leading to unauthorized transactions. For individuals, this can mean drained savings or mounting debts. Attacks on critical infrastructure, such as power grids or healthcare systems, can disrupt daily life. For example, a ransomware attack on a hospital might delay medical treatments, affecting the patient's health. Hacks into social media or email accounts can expose private conversations, photos, or sensitive information, causing emotional distress and reputational harm. The aftermath of a cyber incident, such as dealing with financial recovery or restoring stolen identities, can lead to stress, anxiety, and a sense of vulnerability. And ransomware attacks can lock individuals out of their personal files, such as family photos or important documents, unless a ransom is paid. These are all examples of how cyber incidents can ripple through the lives of everyday people, affecting their finances, privacy, and overall well-being. Secondly, disruptions are increasingly complex. So simply put, when things go wrong, it happens on a very big scale, with disruptions more severe and more complex than ever before. Again, cyber events do not happen in isolation, but can become even more complicated if it's combined with climate-related events or even supply chain disruptions. Take, for example, the Optus outage that occurred due to a data breach. With telecoms being integral to our lives, this outage caused disruptions in a range of dependent sectors. It affected pretty much everybody. So from those unable to contact emergency services when they needed that, to those unable to access their funds because their one-time PINs didn't deliver, to those who were unable to go to the office on that day because childcare centres just said they're not going to take custody of a kid if they won't have a guarantee that they can get a hold of the parent during the day. Think about the countless other cyber attacks that Australia experienced at the end of 2022, with more than 57 million Australians whose private details were compromised. Software supply chains also play a major role, with attackers using third-party systems and updates to move between networks and compromise a wide group of users. Attackers are known to target smaller companies first because traditionally their cybersecurity maturity is not that good. For Australia, who has a 98% SME presence, and many smaller organizations contracted to perform some kind of function within the critical infrastructure space, this has the potential for a major crisis. We are also increasingly seeing climate impacts affecting cyberspace, particularly with the higher number of heat waves that are causing a direct and physical impact on data centers. And then, of course, the direct link between the energy supply and the ability to use the internet and technologies is causing quite a range of problems. Our third reason here is that sectors are increasingly interdependent on each other. When looking at cyber risk understanding and response, typically hazards and sectors are considered in isolation. But we find that hazard events are increasingly interconnected, which can lead to this cascading effect where one hazard triggers another, creating a compounding impact. Now imagine a day where your morning unfolds normally. You wake up, you check your phone, you grab a coffee, and you head off to work. Now imagine how quickly that routine and pretty much your entire day can unravel if just a single piece of infrastructure failed. So let's say the telecommunication system is down, or the electricity or data storage, and think about the ripple effect that that would have on your day. The truth is that Australia's essential services are more interconnected than most people realize. Now, in our research, we found that the data, communications, and electricity are the most interconnected sectors and central to the functioning of almost every other critical sector. These sectors work in tandem to keep systems running, and if any one of these experience some kind of disruption, the impacts and repercussions are going to trickle down very quickly and sometimes have very unexpected repercussions. And not surprisingly, our research also found that cybersecurity risks are common across all of the sectors. So think about the CrowdStrike mishap. There were global IT outages, flights and healthcare disruptions, financial sector, broadcasting networks and emergency services were disrupted, retail and manufacturing faced significant downtime, not to mention the financial damage. And all of this as the result of the human element. So I think after this first section, we can agree that cybersecurity isn't just about the technology. Humans are at the heart of secure systems. Humans create systems, they use systems, and they break the systems. So a couple of key points to take note of. To truly follow a human-centric cybersecurity approach, we need to build a culture of cybersecurity awareness that empowers individuals to make smarter security decisions. Humans will always be looking for ways to game the system. So you need to help people to make smarter decisions by balancing security and usability. So any security solutions must be designed for real people. If users find security features too difficult, they will simply just bypass them, ultimately making the systems less secure. Secondly, we need to prepare backup plans for when impacts cascade. Now, if you rely on electricity or telecommunications or data storage and processing, know that large-scale disruptions will cascade at some point in time, and it will impact your ability to work. So whether you're just a normal person working from home or whether you're in charge of the network at a university, know that you need to have a backup plan for when you lose power or Wi-Fi or online access. And then prepare for the unexpected. Know that no matter how much you prepare, everything is most likely not under control or planned for. So make sure to have a good incident management plan in place. Again, if you're in charge of a large organization, make sure that you've properly tested an incident management plan, both online and printed, and that you know what you are supposed to do and when. And if you're an individual, think about your own personal action plan. Do you have your security team's number on your phone just in case you can't access the online repository? I want to say that most people are going to say no. So we need to take that step further to think about what's going to happen and how is it going to impact me as an individual. An example of a CSIRO project that looks into helping people make smarter decisions is gamification in a cybersecurity context. So for users, it is very important to improve their understanding of threats and to see how a small action or inaction on their side could impact the wider ecosystem. An example of a project that is a great fit for the space is the work that we've done in terms of cybersecurity education and upskilling. On the left-hand side, you will see a simulation that we developed as a prototype. And on the right-hand side, you will see the extension of this work in a mining environment. Now, this provides end users with a safe play space to test out cybersecurity strategies and understanding the larger scale and potentially national level impact if they were to make a wrong move. Now, here in this example, the scenario can be modified to show how somebody forgetting to lock their laptop when they just go to the bathroom quickly could lead to the mine exploding. Obviously, worst case scenario, but is really effective for making people understand the consequences of their actions or inactions. And now another example of a CSIRO project is one that's looking into the cascading impacts. This is a recent collaboration with some of our international partners. For this work, we combined cyber and climate to get an entirely new discipline that can be explored to understand the interconnections and intersections between climate and human-induced hazards. Now, did you know that the amount of water required to cool down a data center can vary significantly based on the size of the facility and the cooling technology used? On average, a data center can consume up to 26 million liters of water per year per megawatt of power it uses. During the 2024 US heat waves, people didn't go outside if they didn't have to, and they rather stayed inside to do stuff on the internet. This put a lot of strain on an already overloaded and overheated data center, requiring even more water to cool down the data centers and leading to additional water restrictions for human consumption. So a bit of a vicious cycle there, again, introduced by human behavior. Now let's move on to the next aspect, which is the role of humans in cybersecurity. Consider that 90% of all data today was created in the last 2 years. That is 2.5 quintillion bytes of data generated per day. With each click, swipe, share, and like, businesses are using data to make decisions about their future. A psychology of technology expert says that the inability for people to escape the plugged-in effect and the constant flow of information is more than what the average human mind can handle. Now, an IBM study showed that 90% of the data on the internet has been created after 2016. So people and devices and the linked accounts are pumping out data. And IoT in particular is responsible for the creation of eons of data by the second. Now, in fact, since 2016, the number of internet users have increased from 49.5% to 65.6%. That means an additional 1.8 billion people are now making use of the internet and churning out more data. Whether technology is applied for good or bad, it has long since crossed the borders of traditional human-computer interaction. And it is at this point that the human focus of cybersecurity becomes really important. Now have a look at this chart titled Data Never Sleeps. Everything we touch and everything we do relies on, uses, and generates data. Data is everywhere, and it is literally exploding exponentially by the minute. Now this chart shows just what this magnitude is for 2024. So for example, every minute Google conducts 6.3 million searches. Amazon customers spend $450,000. People send 241 million emails. Cyber criminals launched 30 DDoS attacks, and Taylor Swift songs are streamed 69,400 times. Also, a new category for this year is that ChatGPT users send 6,944 prompts every single minute, but I'm sure that is going to go up quite significantly for the 2025 edition. Now, this is a lot of new avenues where humans are using cyber and an absolute explosion of personal identifiable information that can be used for a range of different purposes. So let's look at the role that humans can play in cybersecurity. Humans create systems for the use of humans, and humans fulfill the role of everything on the spectrum. So from designer and developer to user to implementer of the protection mechanisms to the responder of the incidents to the creator of the rules and, of course, the attacker. Each of these roles have a range of human-driven vulnerabilities associated with them, mostly linked to human behavior and psychology. So let's look at some of the vulnerabilities in this space. Now, this list is by no means exhaustive, but it will give you an idea of how human behavior can contribute to cyber vulnerabilities and how systems could be adapted or adjusted to accommodate just normal human behavior. So first, let's consider password complexity versus usability. The issue here is that complex password policies can lead to users writing their passwords down. An example of how general guidance was adjusted to accommodate this human behavior was NIST updating their guidelines to recommend passphrases instead of arbitrary and complexity rules that made passwords less usable. So this simple swap to long, memorable passphrases as opposed to complex and often nonsensical passwords can improve security while enhancing usability and enabling users to actually remember their passwords. Consider two-factor authentication implementation. Now, the issue here was that SMS-based two-factor authentication was considered cumbersome, leading to users disabling it. An example of the impact of this was the Twitter 2019 hack that used a SIM swapping attack, allowing the attacks to bypass the implemented security mechanisms because the human disabled it. The simple swap is to use the app-based authentication, which provides security without the usability drawbacks. Another example is phishing awareness and training. Now, the issue, employees fall for phishing emails due to poor awareness. An example of this is Snapchat's 2016 payroll data breach that was caused by a CEO impersonation scam. A simple swap is training on emerging phishing indicators because that never stays constant, and including training simulations that can reduce human errors, making the training a bit more interesting and fun. The next one there is security fatigue. And this is an issue because frequent logins would cause staff to share passwords or write them down. An example of this is an increase in data breaches due to passwords sharing, particularly in hospital settings. A simple swap for this is to use single sign-on and biometric authentication to improve security and efficiency and removing the manual burden from the users. The last one there is software updates. So the issue is that users delay updates due to confusing prompts or software compatibility fears, or simply the time needed to install the update, or the timing. Sometimes it's at the most inconvenient times the system wants to restart. So an example of this was a problem with the 2017 WannaCry ransomware that spread due to outdated systems because people did not do the software updates. So simple swap is to enable automatic updates by default to strengthen the security while reducing the user burden. Now on this slide, and it's a very busy slide, but I'm showing some larger scale cybersecurity incidents and the role that humans played in it. Now, I would like to point out that despite the evolving landscape of cybersecurity, human behavior remains a critical factor, both from a malicious attacker perspective, but also from a defender perspective. So in some of these examples, the resolution of the event was due to collective human effort in the form of an incident response team, but in some instances, it was specifically called out to the efforts of a single person. So some human actions to highlight. With the Melissa virus, user-driven quarantine was very important. These actions driven by individuals helped to limit the virus's spread. With the WannaCry ransomware, an individual halted its spread by discovering a kill switch. With the Colonial Pipeline attack, the recovery was significantly human-led, with prompt government and industry response mitigating the worst-case scenario. Some other lessons learned from this include that users must continuously be aware of how their specific actions would impact the ecosystem as the threats evolve. Security technology is ineffective without the skills or the time to promptly act on alerts. Training should be repeated and be engaging to address human memory limitations effectively, and regular reminders are crucial as people often forget cybersecurity practices under stress. So again, we see that humans are at the core of the cyber vulnerabilities. Humans are both the frontline defense and the greatest vulnerability, but with proper training, you can turn them into an asset. So a couple of key points to take note of. We need to consider public-facing data. It raises privacy, cybersecurity, and reputation management concerns. So we need to regularly review and update privacy settings on public platforms as they frequently change, and it's definitely not a one and done exercise. We need to minimize sharing. So share when you need to and only with whom you need to share. And remember that 2.5 quintillion bytes of data generated per day. It is a dream for big data analytics, but an absolute nightmare for personal security. Next up, consider the human nature. Human error is a significant factor in cybersecurity breaches. People will always try to find loopholes to make their lives easier. And a true human-centric solution will grow with these loopholes and not aim to fill the gap, but rather to secure the gap. Next, we have empowering your users. Now, they need to know what is out there and what could go wrong and what they could do about it. Very important to emphasize that no action is too small. People often think that their reporting of something suspicious might not be useful for the security team. But in many cases, all these small reports contribute to a bigger picture, showing a trend that can help the security team. Similarly, people should understand that a small omission on their side could compromise an entire organization. From a default password on a home server to sending a sensitive attachment via email to not locking the computer when stepping away. Very basic stuff. But you would be surprised how often these things happen. There was, in fact, in the 2017 Boeing cyber incident, an individual shared an email with their partner just to help them. I can't remember if it was formatting the document or to figuring out a tricky Excel formula, but that led to an accidental leaking of 36,000 accounts of sensitive personal data. So something that was intended to be very simple and just quickly asking somebody to help you with something basic that had nothing to do with the data actually led to a significant data breach. So human behavior. And then the last one there is know your network. So collaboration and having a trusted group of people that you can share information with and talk over concerns are absolutely critical. Now, an example of a project that we've done in this space is looking at the combination of cyber and supply chain. We are currently running a project in collaboration with Google to develop novel AI-powered tools for automated vulnerability scanners and data protocols. This can help operators to quickly and precisely identify and assess the impact of open source vulnerabilities on their software supply chains. Another example is our social media analyzer for cybersecurity intelligence. Now, this tool uses natural language processing techniques to generate real-time insights on current or trending cybersecurity events. Think of it as your own personal social media feed designed to give you insights into what cybersecurity information is relevant to your organization, removing the time-consuming activity for yourself to scour through pages and pages and pages to see what is relevant to you. Our third aspect is the shared risk and shared responsibility. Now, cybersecurity has evolved beyond being just an IT problem. It's now integral to operations across all sectors due to the interconnected nature of our systems. This interconnectedness is particularly evident in our utilities, where water, gas, and electricity infrastructure operates through a sophisticated network of IT, OT, and IoT devices. This convergence is creating new vulnerabilities where traditionally isolated operational systems are now exposed to cyber threats through their integration with modern IT networks. And we all depend on these utilities, so it does have a significant impact on all of us. A key focus is our increasing reliance on third-party providers and cloud. That's an old example, but think of the 2013 Target data breach where hackers gained access to Target's network through a third-party HVAC vendor that fell for a phishing email. 40 million credit and debit cards were stolen and could have been prevented with in-depth phishing training. There's also a concerning trend around shadow IT and informal technology adoption, which may pose threats that aren't on the enterprise monitoring logs. Particularly in the higher education sector, we find that people use unauthorized software or hardware which are not actively being protected by the security teams, opening up the connected system to many vulnerabilities. The rise of cloud-based service dependency is also emerging as a critical vulnerability across multiple sectors. This trend is creating new attack vectors and challenging traditional security perimeters. This evolving landscape calls for us to approach cybersecurity not as an individual sector challenge, but as a shared responsibility requiring coordinated systemic responses. Therefore, cybersecurity requires a collective effort across teams, organizations, and industries. Now, we have 3 points to consider to help us come to terms with this shared risk. Firstly, recognize cyber threats and emerging cyber trends. Global connectivity poses a major challenge to the protection of privacy and trust, with costly disruptive potential and roughly about $170 billion spent globally to minimize cybersecurity risks. In Australia, the cost is closer to $29 billion per year, which is about 1.9% of the GDP. The cost of 1 week of cyber downtime to the Australian economy is estimated to be around $1.2 billion. This figure includes direct financial losses, productivity losses, and the broader impact on businesses and services. Now, this is a complex situation with cyber risk assessment challenged by fast evolving threats and data limitations, which are difficult to address when organizations are unwilling to share the relevant information or are unaware of the vulnerabilities to data loss and privacy invasive actions. Our second point is understand the impact of cybersecurity on your organization. So set the expectations of what is possible based on the skills and the people and the needs that you've identified. Choose the problem you want to solve, know your strategy and what you want to do to improve. Again, data is important. It is our main asset and there to be utilized. So use the data that you have within your organization to decide how you can empower your people. How do you get people to make better decisions? How are you going to manage better next time if there's a next incident or a next potential incident? And very importantly, do you trust all your employees and clients to do the right thing? Are they empowered to do that? Use all of your data to answer these questions and identify some human-centric security swaps. Our last point is focus on cybersecurity upliftment. Now, in a study by Accenture, they determined that 87% of the companies were of the opinion that they would be digitally disrupted in the next 5 years. Yet, only 7% of them had a plan to manage the disruption. So only 7% had a plan in place to manage their organizational future, to manage the sustainability of the organization. At the moment, cyber is so ingrained into the current business environment. It should be embraced and adopted as part and parcel of the critical success factors. Think about it. Many companies are applying AI technologies across many industries with benefits and decision-making, particularly time saved to spend on the actual business focus. Adoption of advanced technology will lead to sustained growth, but many organizations do not have the in-house capabilities to protect themselves. Therefore, cybersecurity upliftment is a much needed direction to focus on, both in terms of upskilling the individuals within your organization, but also uplifting the entire ecosystem. So a couple of points to take note of here. We need to share the responsibility. So it requires collaboration between individuals, organizations, and governments. Nobody can do it alone or on their own. We need to know what is wrong, what can go wrong, who is responsible, who is accountable, and who has the expertise. If everybody can do their bit with the basics, cyber hygiene and all of that, we can all build a stronger foundation to limit the number of human error attributed cyber events. Next, we have prepare together. So planning and simulation exercises ensures more effective responses to cyber incidents. We need to recognize new cyber threats, continue to work on old threats, and plan for emerging threats. We also need to be very honest about our weak points. It's no use to just gloss over vulnerabilities because you don't want to lose face or fail a security audit. That is why it's so reassuring that many organizations adopt a no-fault culture where people can feel safe in reporting human errors. So yes, you may have clicked on malware or activated ransomware, or yes, you may have left your password on a sticky note or plugged an unsecured USB into the network. Thank you for reporting it. It helps the security team to get to the root of the problem quicker without spending hours or even days trying to find the entry point. So let's work on this together to fix it, and then we can focus on retraining the individual later. But with that attitude, people are more comfortable to come forward and say, I made a mistake. Let's work together. And then the last one there is collective ownership. Now, in this, building a culture of trust will foster resilience in the face of cyber threats. So if we can implement a layered security system where everybody contributes a bit and can feel in charge of something, it will help a lot towards this human-centric focus. A really nice example of this is a CSIRO's CISO sending out a weekly email snapshot of cybersecurity within the organization. So mentioning any incidents, any near misses, and what the team is working on to uplift cybersecurity in the organization. It helps to make people feel part of the process and contribute to collective ownership in the sense that people know what is going on and they can learn from other people's mistakes or other people's near misses, but in an informal, non-training environment. So it doesn't seem so intimidating. Now, some examples is our work on CyberBuddy. This was done with the Cybersecurity Collaborative Research Center. Now, this project saw the development of a mobile cybersecurity self-help app designed to help individuals and businesses, but particularly our smaller businesses, to improve their cybersecurity posture. Very human-centric focus. This app is based on a do-something approach to cybersecurity upliftment and not on a do-nothing approach. So even if you just do one small thing every day, it means you are further than you were the day before. Another example is some of our earlier works that include the development of a cybersecurity maturity model for critical infrastructure. Now, the risk assessment methodology clearly and visually shows organizations what these red zones are and help them to understand the threats that an organization are exposed to, map the threat criticality factors to entity-specific risk factors, calculate cyber readiness per threat, and calculate the likelihood of threats realizing. It's a very nice visual element to help people prepare together. So let's quickly run through our key takeaways from today. Firstly, data is everywhere. Hazards are everywhere and happening at the same time, and causing significant disruptions, not only in the originating sector, but cascading and compounding to disrupt other sectors and other essential services. To stay ahead, we need to understand why we need to look at human-centric security. We need to understand the role of humans in cybersecurity, and we need to know how to work together to prepare. We can make cybersecurity fun. We can consider our vulnerabilities. We can learn from other events. We can plan, and we can upskill our cybersecurity maturity, and we can take action. With that, I thank you for your time today.
Thanks so much, Marty. We have quite a few questions that have come through, so I'll just go through them and I'll take as many as we can manage in the time that we have left. So the first question is in regards to
Sorry, Alana, you broke
Yes.
up there.
Joyce, I might hand over to you to conduct the Q&A.
Not a problem at all. Thank you, Dr. Marthie. That was absolutely fantastic. Great presentation. We do have a couple of questions. And one of the questions that has been asked is wondering how real-time X analysis tool previously mentioned in your presentation works. How might it work other than monitoring? Does it also work to produce false information on X, promote right information, so to reduce cyber risks and other risks by any chance?
I'll briefly touch on that, but I can, if that person is very interested in that, I can connect you to the project lead on that project who can give you more of the technical detail. But in short, it looks at the natural language processing to just sift through the mass of posts that are there. There are a mechanism implemented to determine what is fake and what is not fake, looking at historical actions, looking at the way that the posts are structured. But in essence, it's then collating information, splitting it into malicious or non-malicious, and giving some recommendations based on what your system is about. So if there's specific keywords from your side in terms of the operating system that you have, or any open source software that's installed on your company network, it will just direct you to that. So it's not a technical solution, but it's a way to, I want to say, not go into that rabbit hole once you start clicking on links on the internet as you finding something. So just helping manage human behavior and bringing that down and sort of uplifting the productivity level. I hope that answers, but if you're interested, please reach out and I can connect you to the project lead.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that. We also have another question. As social media is becoming a part of our everyday lives, how does social media influence human behavior in relation to cybersecurity risks? May you share some insights and research papers related to this?
Well, that is a very good question, and a lot of work has been done in terms of that. We have actually just submitted a chapter on misinformation, disinformation in this space, because with social media, posts can go completely viral, regardless of whether it's fake or not, and people just tend to believe it. There's a number of human factors, such as inherent trust and confidence, and the tone of voice of the person who wrote the initial social media post. There's a lot of human behavioral aspects to be considered, and some formulas in terms of how that would spread in the long run. Again, there's a lot of information, not everything that I can share just verbally quickly, but please reach out to me and I can pass on some additional resources to you.
Okay, thank you for that. Also a good question here. Is the Cyber Buddy available on iOS?
Not yet. I think they might still be in the process of commercialization, but again, reach out. We're always looking for people to test and trial our systems.
Okay, and I think our final question for this morning is, in the light of Scopely's recent acquisition of Pokemon Go and the potential sale of TikTok to multiple parties, how are cybersecurity concerns and consumer protection issues being addressed in these high-profile transactions involving popular mobile applications?
That is a very good question, and probably not something that I can comment on. I don't have the background information on that. But just in general, sorry, just looking at the question in the chat. Actually, no, I can't comment on that one, but it is a good question.
Yeah, no worries at all. And we do have some other questions as well, which maybe you may be able to answer very quickly. The second problem is to do with IT staff that have not been honest on their works, and they're just referencing another organization that was caught. And it's all about, there've been findings that JavaScript and JCON plus C+ are the languages that IT are using. What are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Sorry, can you just repeat the last part? So what are my thoughts on the programming languages used?
That's right. Yes, indeed.
I have not come across that specific study or any references to that. I want to say that there might be some trends in terms of specific programming languages used for malicious purposes, but if there's a human involved, anything good can be turned for evil, if that makes sense. So probably not the most eloquent answer, but I don't specifically have any comments. Anything where human is involved can be used for good or bad. So it's just in terms of the application thereof.
Yes, of course. And this will be our last question. How can organizations improve third parties' user awareness?
Okay. For that one, I would definitely recommend a more intense third-party supply chain contract. So a lot of companies have moved towards giving stricter guidance. So if you would like to be involved in our supply chain, these are the criteria that you need to implement. So within Australia, a lot of them would be recommending that as a minimum, you need to have the essential 8. But in addition, in order to work with us and our ecosystem, these are the requirements. A lot of the smaller organizations don't like that, and particularly down the supply chain, people don't always adhere to that, but it just means that you're introducing a weaker link within the supply chain. So just being a bit more firm in terms of what do you expect and making sure that they adhere to that, otherwise no business. So it's a bit of an adjustment period, but I know there's some movement towards that.
Okay, thank you so much, Marthie, and for a very insightful and interesting presentation. And also as well, thank you to our guests for taking the time to join us today and to contribute to some engaging discussion. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us today. And once again, a very big thank you to Dr. Marthie. Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity.